Good. Oh, this is tricky. Good morning, everybody. If everybody could take a seat, we're going to get started in just a couple of minutes. I want to thank everybody for joining us today at Liberty State Park at this incredibly wonderful location where we are going to make some important announcements in just a few minutes. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Sharon LaShare. I am the Interim Communications Director for the Attorney General. Some of you I know from being with you a few years ago in this position. Now that Steve Barnes has moved on to Indiana, you get me back for a little while. I've had some fun with some of you calling you from his phone number when you think you're getting Steve and instead you get me on the other end. So if any of you need to reach me, that is the number, the best number. So if you have Steve Barnes plugged into your phone, it's now going to get you me. You all should have copies of the press release. If you don't, it will be on our website, as will the pictures, as will be the complaint. With everybody else, we don't bring copies of all that paper anymore. You can grab it from the website. We are going to do some on-topic Q&A today from the podium. The Commissioner and the Attorney General will both be available for that. We're asking that we do any off-topic questions afterwards so that we can end this promptly and people can go back to what they need to be doing, and that if the reporters want to stay into a little bit off-topic, we can do that separately on one of the sides with the Commissioner and the Attorney General. So you can see me or Karen, and we can help you out with that. I want to thank our partners here at Liberty State Park. They are the most incredible partners ever and the most amazing hosts. And I want to thank our partners, DEP, who do such amazing work every day here for New Jersey. So I will leave you guys for a couple minutes, make sure that we are ready to get this started, and we will be back down. But before I go, any questions, any things I didn't answer, anything we need to take care of? We're all good. All right, so the next people at the mic will be your speakers. You will have, just for the record, you will have the Attorney General, Matthew Placken. You will have the Commissioner of DEP, Sean LaTourette, and you will have Carrie Fays, who is the Director of the Department of Consumer Affairs. Short and sweet, I promise. We'll see you in a few minutes.
Morning, everyone. Wow, that's loud. Thank you all for attending today. It's great to be here with so many of you, and I'm particularly honored to be here with the Commissioner of the Department of Environmental Protection and the Acting Director of the Division of Consumer Affairs, Carrie Fayes. Nearly 10 years ago, in fact 10 years ago next Tuesday, Superstorm Sandy made landfall, leaving behind a trail of devastation the likes of which the state has never seen. I know many of you do not need a reminder of Sandy's impact. More than 300,000 homes were damaged, 600 roads were closed, over half the state lost power, and tragically, 38 people passed away. All told, Sandy caused $30 billion in property damage. And you undoubtedly recall many of the iconic and frankly horrific images from the storm, many of which are behind me here. Hoboken, just a short distance from here, was nearly entirely submerged. 80% of the city was underwater. The famous Jetstar roller coaster in Seaside Heights was swept out to sea. In Manloking, the main bridge was overtaken by the storm surge and a house was completely knocked off its foundation. Atlantic City was completely flooded. And where we're standing now here in Liberty State Park, this terminal was under 5 feet of water and the roof was badly damaged. Superstorm Sandy may have originated in the Caribbean Sea, but its strength is owed to something far larger: climate change. We now know that climate change is a man-made phenomenon caused by the burning of fossil fuels. Fossil fuels that are put into the market by oil and gas companies without any warning of their dangers. Had we known this earlier, had we been advised and warned of the dangers of these products, we could have taken actions that would have mitigated or even eliminated many of the risks of climate change, including the prevalence of dangerous storms like Sandy. Which brings us to why we're here today, because today we begin to right the wrongs inflicted on our residents by companies who deliberately chose profits over our global environment and the well-being of our residents. This morning, I, alongside the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection and the Division of Consumer Affairs, filed a new lawsuit in state court to hold multinational oil and gas companies accountable for unlawfully deceiving consumers and for the harm that their dishonesty has caused to the people of New Jersey, from our historic cities to our iconic shorelines. Today's suit has been filed under the New Jersey Consumer Fraud Act, as well as the common law related to failure to warn, negligence, trespass, nuisance, and impairing the state's public trust. This lawsuit will seek administrative penalties, compensatory damages, natural resource damages, and punitive damages. We'll ask the court to order the defendants to stop their lying and to pay for the costs of their conduct to New Jersey. Specifically, we allege that Exxon, BP, Chevron, ConocoPhillips, Shell Oil, and the American Petroleum Institute have known since the 1950s that their fossil fuel products are a main driver of global climate change, and they've worked very hard to keep our residents in the dark. They knew that fossil fuels were causing global warming, melting polar ice caps, and triggering sea level rise that threatened people living in coastal communities. Their own scientific experts warned long ago that the ongoing burning of fossil fuels would be, and I quote, catastrophic for the planet, and could have, quote, serious consequences for man's comfort, and survival. Corporate executives knew that, quote, by the time the global warming became detectable, it could be too late to take effective countermeasures to reduce the effects or even stabilize the situation. It would have been bad enough, and indeed a violation of our laws, for them to have remained silent as money poured into their coffers and gasoline poured into gas tanks, all while they knew that their products were creating a looming environmental and economic catastrophe. But these companies went one step further. The defendants not only failed to warn the public, but they actively lied to us for decades to cover it up. They led a decades-long disinformation campaign to confuse the public about fossil fuels and climate change, even though the scientific consensus was secure. They did this specifically to avoid a cleaner, lower carbon future, and to preserve their market for their commodities at the expense of the global environment and, frankly, at all of our expense. They also did this to stave off public opinion or government action that could have cut into their profits. And even today, the defendants continue to mislead consumers by portraying themselves as protectors of the environment. They claim they're developing alternative energy sources, even though their investments in that technology are minuscule. They claim that they're making their oil and gas cleaner, even though they remain dirty fossil fuels. At the same time as they're making these claims, they continue to pump up oil and gas production to levels previously unforeseen. And to make matters worse, even as they told the public that climate change was not real and that their products were safe, these companies believed the science and took steps to protect their own assets from climate change. They raised offshore drilling platforms to account for sea level rise, and they secured patents for drilling in the Arctic, knowing that the polar ice caps would be melting. They did things that governments and our residents could and would have done had we been warned properly earlier. It's long overdue that these betrayals of their customers and of the public come to an end, and that the perpetrators of these lies pay for their conduct, and that the people of New Jersey receive restitution for all that they have lost. The consequences of the defendants' lies are felt here in New Jersey every day. We know that sea level rise caused by climate change continues to threaten coastal communities across our state. We know that extreme heat continues to jeopardize our public health. We know that storms like Superstorm Sandy pose an ever-present danger. And we know that the impacts of climate change are felt by communities across our state, from our cities to our suburbs, from our wetlands to our rural communities. The defendants in today's action also knew of these risks, and they knew of them literally decades ago. And they could have acted to prevent them. Instead, they chose their profits over our safety. But because of this suit that we have filed today, we expect that these lies will stop. And I assure you that we will work tirelessly to ensure that these companies pay every last dollar for the harms that they've caused. I want to thank the Department of Environmental Protection and its Commissioner, Sean LaTourette, the Division of Consumer Affairs, and its Acting Director, Carrie Fayes, for bringing this suit with me. I want to also recognize the outstanding work of our litigation team, Director of Division of Law, Mike Long, Assistant Attorneys General Jason Rockwell and Aaron Kleinbaum, Deputy Attorneys General Jennifer Schiefelbein, Jesse Surratt, Jessica Palmer, Andrew Reese, Monisha Kumar, Daniel Ressler, Monica Finke, Executive Assistant Attorney General Shirley Emahelu, Senior Counsels to me, Christina Brandt-Young and Daniela Noguera, and our outside counsel, Cher Edling. With this suit, we're sending a clear message to every industry, including the petroleum industry. If you lie to the public to protect your profits, we will hold you accountable. No matter how big you are, no matter how powerful you are, no matter how much influence you may have. And so now it's my honor to introduce the Commissioner of the Department of Environmental Protection, Sean LaTourette.
Thank you, General, and thank you to all of the Assistant Attorneys General and Deputies Attorney General who have worked to bring this suit. Something that we at the Department of Environmental Protection have worked really hard across every division, across our legal offices to help support. And generally, you have our word that we'll continue to support you and our outside counsel in all the ways that we can in moving forward down this path. You know, we stand here today in this historic terminal 10 years after Superstorm Sandy slammed into New Jersey, devastating communities, coastal and urban alike. And it costs not only tremendous property damage, but precious lives. Right? In this terminal, an 11-foot storm surge brought 5 feet of water, devastating not only this really special historic place, which welcomed waves of immigrants to their ultimate homes in the United States of America for generations, but also destroyed our nature center that we were only able to bring back online last year. The devastation that Sandy brought to our coastal communities just 1 year ago, Ida brought to our riverine communities last year. So within 10 years, New Jersey experienced two of the most devastating, life-altering storms in our history. And that's in no small part because of our states, our nations, and indeed the world's addiction to fossil fuels. Those of you here today that have worked hard with us on climate policy, that have partnered with Governor Murphy and the DEP, you know that New Jersey is ground zero for some of the worst impacts of climate change. Our communities and our environments are continually recovering from extreme heat, from devastating floods, from droughts. The facts are in. We just came through one of the hottest summers on record in the state of New Jersey. We're still in a drought watch right now. 15,000 acres of our pinelands burned to the ground in June. A 9-mile-long harmful algal bloom infected one of our critical water supplies throughout the summer. And because our weather patterns have been so devastatingly changed, when we finally got rain, it caused flooding in communities throughout the state, including in Atlantic City and in places in Bergen County. And the truth is, while I hate to be a bummer, it only gets worse from here. We could phase out every fossil fuel plant, make every car electric, and we should. We could do all of that tomorrow and it still gets worse because of the emissions that we've already placed into the atmosphere. New Jersey is facing a greater risk of sea level rise, 2 times greater than most other places on the planet. And it will surprise no one that New Jersey already sees 2.5% to 10% more extreme precipitation in the last 20 years, which we can reasonably project will go up to 20% to 50% in the decades ahead. We know this because of reliable climate science. And today we're bringing this lawsuit, as the general said, because the oil majors, they knew the climate science too. They knew it at a time when we could have acted together as a people to avoid some of the damage that we've already experienced and to thwart the damage that is coming. But instead of sharing that knowledge, these companies undermined the science. They lied to us. It was intentional. It wasn't some error of omission, because the science was inconvenient for them. Not for us, not for the people, but for them. It signaled now what is well known, that the planet is warming at an alarming rate, a disruptive rate, and that warming is largely because of human activity, the majority of it because of the burning of fossil fuels. They knew it sooner. The 1980s were the lost decade to get climate under control, and we failed because they lied. They obstructed the science and the public policy that flows from good science in a self-interested attempt to hold on for as long as they could without having to experience disruption themselves. A change to their business model that, quite frankly, all fossil fuel companies will have to reckon with. And many are now. Look, I don't believe that corporations are innately evil. Corporations are comprised of people, and people are fundamentally good. But we all need accountability. We all need that help guarding against our worst instincts of self-interest. We need accountability to preserve and protect what is common to us all, like the environment that we share. And without that accountability, we could wind up with an executive holding an earnings report in one hand, good climate science in the other, deciding it's best to bury the science. And without accountability, we could wind up marking dual anniversaries of devastating, destructive storms that were fueled by anthropogenic climate change. All those lives lost. Without accountability, we can wind up in a bum rush to wean ourselves off the fossil fuels that these companies have long known would fuel our pain, and decide to deceive us because it was better for their bottom line. And so today we demand that accountability. We demand that the oil majors answer for deceiving New Jerseyans, for making climate policy so hard to achieve through obfuscation and delay. We demand accountability because it's just plain wrong to put profit over people and the planet that we share. So again, thank you, General.
Thank you, Commissioner. It's my honor to introduce the Acting Director of the Division of Consumer Affairs, Carrie Fayes.
Thank you, General. Today, the Division of Consumer Affairs took action to hold some of the largest members of the fossil fuel industry accountable, not just for poisoning the environment, but for lying about it to the people of New Jersey. The defendants named in this lawsuit have long known the truth that fossil fuels cause climate change, but they withheld that truth and instead put out misleading information about the safety of their products. They deceived the public into believing that climate change either wasn't real or wasn't being caused by fossil fuels. And with those deceptions, they lulled the public into a false sense of security. Now, this remarkably effective disinformation campaign lasted decades and prevented urgently needed corrective action from happening. Now, we're all paying the price with rising sea levels and extreme weather. The property damage has been tremendous, and the loss of life, a tragedy. But the deception didn't stop there. It didn't stop with just misrepresenting the truth about climate change. These companies went further, and they falsely suggested to consumers that they were stewards of the environment. Through deceptive marketing, they greenwashed their actions and portrayed themselves as responsible corporate citizens searching for environmental solutions. It is long overdue that these defendants stop feeding the public bad information and start paying for the damages caused by their false statements. This case is about justice for every New Jerseyan who's had to line the curb with their waterlogged belongings after their basement flooded time and time again. It's about justice for those who now find themselves living in flood zones. This case is about getting justice for those who had to be rescued from rising floodwaters by first responders. And it's about justice for those who were swept away before help could arrive. Now, for decades, these defendants have boosted their own profits while undermining science and public awareness. And the losses were borne by New Jersey's taxpayers. We will not stand by as the defendants enrich themselves at the expense of the public. It is the mission of the Division of Consumer Affairs to protect the people of New Jersey and hold accountable those who violate the Consumer Fraud Act. And that's exactly what this lawsuit will do. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. We'll take on topic from the podium if anyone has any questions.
Hoboken did this 2 years ago. Other municipalities
So, thanks for the question. A couple of things. Hoboken, about a dozen cities and counties that have brought similar, not identical lawsuits to us, including Hoboken, in about 6 states. There's a couple of things that are different. One, when we act, we take statewide action. So we're addressing the harms that are incurred throughout the state. We also are the only entity the government of the state is the only entity in New Jersey that's able to bring a lawsuit to protect the natural resources of the state, which is something we're doing here, which is a significant difference from what Hoboken has done. Look, we're talking about suing some of the largest companies in the world, and we don't take enforcement actions lightly. We've given this the due consideration that it deserves. We've monitored court developments in other jurisdictions, and I'm confident the complaint we're filing today is one that is both timely and will deliver very meaningful results for the people of New Jersey and, frankly, for the environment. Sure.
Are there any similarities to the various state actions that have been taken over the past 20 years, 30 years against big tobacco and big pharma or the opioid crisis that you would find in this lawsuit as far as legal justification?
It's very similar. Look, in some respects. Look, every industry, you're putting products out there. If the products are unsafe and you know it, you're violating our laws. So when the tobacco industry put tobacco products out and knew those products were unsafe, it was lawsuits brought by state attorneys general that brought hundreds of millions of dollars annually to our state that they had to pay because of the dangers that they knowingly caused to our residents. When the opioid industry introduced products that devastated our communities, knowingly killing and harming millions of people across our country, including a significant number of residents of our state. State attorneys general, led by our office, sued a number of the manufacturers and distributors and brought billions of dollars in restitution to people who have been harmed by the opioid epidemic. I announced earlier this year a settlement just with 3 distributors and Johnson & Johnson subsidiary that's going to bring $641 million just from those 4 entities alone to provide evidence-based relief to people suffering from addiction in our state. The theory is similar. The oil and gas companies lied to our residents. They knew the dangers of climate change. They knew it decades ago. They had their own research was peer-reviewed, and yet they continued to put those products out and in fact took the affirmative step of making people feel that climate change wasn't real, that the scientific consensus didn't exist, and that there weren't efforts that we could take to mitigate the harms. And so in that sense, the theory is real. This is obviously a significant scale, this case. We're suing the largest companies in the world in many respects, and the damages are going to be significant, and we look forward to proving them and, like I said, bringing every last dollar back to the state.
ExxonMobil, one of the defendants, said that he told me in response to the legal proceedings that this will waste millions of dollars of taxpayer money and do nothing to advance meaningful actions that reduce the risk of climate change. Do you have a response?
I think the companies that have been lying to us for decades, we'll see them in court. Any other on topics?
Hoboken has already spent, planning to spend, or in the process of spending, hundreds of millions of dollars for their resiliency projects because of flooding from Sandy. Can you even guesstimate how much the state has suffered in dollars and will suffer in trying to build resiliency in the coming, say, 10 years that we would want to get out of the oil companies?
I think it's premature to make an estimate in the context of this litigation. Like I said, we intend to prove through this litigation the damages caused by these defendants. We could have, I'm sure the commissioner can give you offline the scale of climate change and its impact in New Jersey. But as I said, we intend to prove through this litigation and fight for every last penny for the state.
Thank you. This is really exciting. But my question is, these type of lawsuits usually going to take a long time. I think we're going against have high-powered attorneys. Usually take a long time in litigation, many, many, many years. I guess for the residents, how do we ensure that this remains a priority
Look, we have a good track record in this state of leading some of the largest and most complicated and complex litigations against some of the biggest players. We just talked about the tobacco and the opioid litigation. My office is actively litigating against some of the largest social media companies and now some of the largest oil and gas companies. We've built a team, and many of them are here, that is committed to bringing these fights and ultimately not just filing a complaint. It's nice to file a complaint, but we are going to litigate this tooth and nail until resolution is brought and restitution is returned to the state. And that's a commitment that we make in our office, and that I believe every Attorney General who would stand after me would say the same. Well, thank you all. I appreciate you being here and look forward to working with you.
Oh, yeah. No worries, no worries. Fantastic. It is